So again, here's our 96 feet. And what we do is, okay, say the bottom rail, we got all of our feet attached. What we'll do is we'll just slide up all the rails that we want and just set them up here and rest them on the rails. Then we'll come through with our bolts and slide them down and count the feet and say, okay, this rail has 6 feet to it. It's a 20-foot rail. Slide all the bolts down in it, and then the next one, slide all the bolts down in. So then all you have to do is flop the panel up, and then, or flop the rail up, and then tighten everything into it. Again, we like going into the top of the rail because that gives you room to maneuver a little bit, and sometimes you can cheat a lot out of a poor roof in terms of deflections with the top rail just by that little bit of a gap. And you know in your mind that as you're thinking like, okay, everything is tightened as high as it will go. So if I have to make an adjustment, the only adjustment I can make is low. So even though this one might seem low right now, I could always adjust the other ones lower to make up for that.
You said the distance, but when you're ordering the panels, are you getting all of the rails and the nuts and everything
Yes.
with it, so you don't have to sit and calculate how many?
Yeah. When we order it, you know, we had talked about possibly doing like kits, like 7 and 15 panel kits or whatever, but we figured since each roof is different, just for the people that are actually serious about ordering it and want to go ahead with it, then we could just design, you know, you just tell me I have a row of 10, I have a row of 7, and then I've got a row of 3. So that's what my system is. So I can order that specifically for you. You'll have rails, you'll have feet, you'll have all the flashed attachments. The only thing this company doesn't come with is the stainless steel lags. So you'll have to get them at a hardware store. Home Depot has them. They have 3 and 4 inch, and maybe even 5 inch. But if you need anything larger, then you're going through a couple layers of shingles or a metal roof, going through some furring strips, and then a couple layers of shingles on top. And you might need 5 or 6 inch lags, and those you'll have to like special order. I think Dick Palmer is down here in 652. I think they have them. But if you're not from here, then it's somewhere local.
Nothing galvanized.
Life expectancy of the panels, do they have like
It's either aluminum or stainless.
They have a 10-year warranty on the actual construction of the panels, and then for the actual guaranteed power output, they warranty those for 25 years. It is a standard industry warranty, but the warranty is only as good as the manufacturer that is still in business 25 years from now. That's why like these are Hyundai panels. We do Sharp panels. We're doing Schott solar panels. You might not have heard of that name, but they were in America for a while, but now they're just in Germany again, but they've been around in Germany for a long, long time. Kyocera, Canadian Solar is a more name brand. Some Chinese companies come up overnight and are out of business the next week, so we don't like to install them.
And do you know what it does to the value of a house? I mean, have you seen?
According to an article, I just had sent one to one of our customers. He was curious. Forbes.com says that if you're whatever you invest into your system, you should get that same money out of it if you sell it. So if you, and that's really just referring to the 30% federal tax credit. So in Pennsylvania, if you put up a $30,000 system, you should get, say, $21,000 out of that when you go to sell it, because you've already saved your other $9,000 on that from your federal taxes. So in theory, you didn't even pay that $9,000, but it should be at $21,000. So if you're in New York State and you're doing this with the federal and the state money, which you can only get the state money through an approved contractor, but if the more savings you have, the more appealing it is to put it up in the event of a sale too. Yes.
These right here, I see that you have this kind of down. Shouldn't these go up so they're above this? But not? I mean, absolutely.
Sometimes you run into that, and we just do a little bit of a smear of silicone in that throat, that little throat of the.
Really, this should be tucked under here.
And that should be tucked under, yeah.
Well, this absolutely should go up as close to here as possible, so that if any ice or water goes up under here, it can't get behind the shield.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and then again, here's your little bonding jumper, braided. bonding jumper, there's weaves underneath it.
These are what he's talking about with weeds and these little divots that actually pierce underneath. So, just see when
Yes. Yeah, that's something important too, is if you lay out your system, one is if you have three
another
different,
style of a weave.
if you have a
That
row
goes
of
to
10
those divots.
panels, you have a row of 7 panels, you have a row of 3 panels, well, make sure you don't just cut your longest rail, assuming, you know, make sure you kind of think it through in your head, because there are certain length rails. You have 16 foot, 20 foot, 12 foot, and I think 8 foot rails or something. They make a wide variety of lengths, so depending on your system, they don't all just come 20 foot and cut them to fit. It all depends on what you have. But when you do lay out your system, take your measurements and just run it through your head a couple times, and just make sure this doesn't fall on a seam of where 2 panels are going to land, because that might cause some issues. And these jumpers themselves, sometimes when you have to jump this this gap here, this splice in the rail, when you go to jump it, sometimes a panel, one panel ends here, the other panel ends here, and you have your mid clip in between. But on the back side of this panel, it's not like it's just a thin panel. You have a good 1.25 inch difference here that you have to account for also. So if your one panel ends here, let's say, you have 1 inch for your mid clip, and then you have 1.25 inches for that other panel. So really, you want to tighten this one down right there and let this other one run wild, or vice versa. So you have to just think those through, and when you're putting up your rails and everything, you might want to slide everything a couple inches just to make sure you're not running into an issue. But once you go through and actually not tighten these down first, you want to put your inverter, the ones to mount your inverter. So we measured out, okay, here's where we're starting our panel. We're working this way. We have 2 bolts here. Slide it up under. One of them has a weave to bond it. If you don't want to do this route, chances are you could do a different route with your bonding wire. If you buy a 120-foot spool of the number 6 copper wire, your chances are you're not going to use all of that for your job. So instead of using weaves, if you wanted to use up your bonding wire by backing out this screw and running your bonding, you could also bond it by running a wire through everything this way. That makes it convenient too, because then you don't need these little tabs. If you have an inverter here, an inverter here, an inverter here, as you're running that bonding wire along, you catch this inverter, and you can do a different option, which is these lugs instead. Same idea, but you hit inverter, inverter, through here, which is your jumper for the rails, and then just keep going through the inverters.
That's
too.
what you showed yet last night with the
Yes.
video.
Yep, that video showed that last night. So once we have our inverters put on, then it makes more sense to actually put this jumper in and the splices in, because that way if you forget a nut or a bolt or something, you could still, like once you tighten down on these things, then it's a pain to loosen them, and you're really not supposed to use these over again. Once you've cranked down on them officially, you're not supposed to use them over again, because these little divots, even though they bite in, these little barbs, they bite in, they get flattened too. So they're a lot less effective to make a mechanical ground. So you slide your rails or your junctions or your splices, and then your bonding wire, your bonding jumper, whatever you want to refer to it as. Again, these are cranked down. I'm not going to crank down on this just because of the weave, and there's $2 for a weave. But does that make sense so far?
The weave, where's the weave's underneath there, right?
Yes. Yep.
Now, it's not touching the panel.
That weave is not touching the panel, but that weave is not supposed to bond that panel. This weave is supposed to bond this to the rail.
Okay.
Yep.
If you didn't use a weave, this would still kind of bond to the rail, but probably get a bad connection over years because of kind of
It probably wouldn't because this has got an anodized finish to it, or anodized aluminum, so it's got a real thick finish to it. To actually bite into the metal, you have to kind of penetrate it a little bit.
You need weed.
Yes, you need weed.
Penetrate the metal.
Yep.
All right.
So then we run our trunk cable, and we just use, I think, 11-inch zip ties.
Something like that, yeah.
These are ones that are quite 11-inch, that's why we got to use two of them. Well, at Home Depot or whatever, they'll actually say UV resistant zip ties. So a lot of times you'll have to put 2 zip ties on this to hold it flat. The main thing is so it doesn't spin. Because if it spins down like it is now, yeah, that zip tie was not working. But if it spins down, then when you plug your inverter into it, a lot of times your cable will be pushed down against the roof, and that's not good. Again, a sign of a good system is when you stand back on the bottom part of your roof and you look up underneath, you'll have the panels on top and all you should see is daylight. Maybe a little bit of a swale every now and then in some wires, but you never want to see anything touching the roof. The best job you can see is if nothing touches the roof. I remember when I brought Augusto to see that one over in Damascus, I'm telling this future customer of ours, okay, this is what you want to see. This is how you see a good system, and you look up underneath the roof and you don't see anything, and then right at the end it was like, something must have come loose or whatever. So I looked like an idiot, but a little bit more of an idiot than I look like now. So, but yeah, so here you have everything tightened up, everything zip tied. These are all clipped in, and then you're ready to set your panels. One thing I do want to point out is, say you do say you have an odd number of panels that you have, say, a 20-foot rail and then like a 40-inch piece. You want that 40-inch piece to have at least 2 L feet on it. You don't want, just because you can see how wobbly this is, just having one splice and one rail. You want 2 feet to hold this pretty steady. So just keep that in mind. Then it comes time for the panels.
Some of the inverters are going to have little plugs in them. You're going to want to pull out. And you want to prep this as much as you can before you get a panel on the roof, and then your hands are tied up and you realize you can't plug it in because they have these little plugs.
6 kilowatt system.
And now you'll probably be able to see this better on that side.
So, you want to set it down? Oh, you want to see me clip it in?
Yeah, but, be able to.
Well, necessarily clip it in, but basically when you set this first panel in here, you can reach underneath with your arm if you have long arms, and after it's all fastened down, you can clip it in. But it's a lot easier just to have it, one guy hold it, tilt it, just pop those off, plug it in. That's about it. Some panels, depending on the manufacturer we get a deal on, they'll come coiled up like this. We just suggest you leave it coiled because the inverter's right here. You don't have to go anywhere special, and it keeps it from laying on the roof. A lot of times that gets sandwiched in here and supported off this inverter, so it doesn't. You don't have to worry about like fastening those wires. Sometimes you have to have, we'll have like little metal clips that hold them in, or see these little drainage holes here. We'll put a wire tied through that to hold the wires up. But the less you have to mess around with these wires, the better off you are. You just plug those in, set the panel down, and what we'll do is we'll have this measured, say whatever distance we wanted. Say it was 13 inches. So we'll have the panel measured at 13 inches and our little Sharpie marker, and hit it there, and then hit it here, so we know roughly where we should be aligned at. And then we'll also have, say we want to start 2 inches from here, we'll have a little Sharpie marker on each rail, so we know to bring it over and up, and it gets us at least close, and then we can double check everything once we tighten it down. But the best rail to measure off of is always your upper one of the two, because if you want to envision yourself on the roof with any type of pitch, usually Billy's laying right there, resting his weight on that rail, so that might deflect it a little bit, so you don't want to be measuring off of that. This upper one is usually the one you don't have any pressure on. So some through here. As we tighten it, that T-bolt slides and locks in place. And you can tighten pretty good on these. Again, torque specification, I never had a torque wrench on the roof, but just if you're doing yourself or you have any type of hands-on experience, you kind of get that feel that, okay, this is pretty good.
Tight's tight and too tight's broke.
Yeah, exactly. Then you'll figure out real quick, what too tight is. So you tighten that down. And this is definitely a two-man job. We don't usually just leave the panel like this, but it is pretty stable, but just not when you're on the roof and you're worried about it sliding and falling or a couple stories. Then yeah. We take our weave. We'll start with the bottom here. Snap it in there, push it over to the cab. These are kind of aggravating when you're on the roof, to get that just right, and then you go put the other panel on there, and you slide it over, and sometimes you'll push it up underneath or something. It doesn't. You just want to make sure these little bars are underneath that and underneath the next one. Because sometimes if it gets pushed over, this one won't be catching anything. Just for argument's sake, I'm not going to put these in and crank down on them. But,
It's just a little awkward, especially when you're or I'm not too fond of heights, so anybody takes chances among the agents.
You want to slap that up there? So again, if we had another inverter there, he usually sets it right here, clips in the wires, sets it down, and then whichever one the weave is on, remember we were going to put the weave down here, that's usually the one you want to put on first. So that way you're not getting that one all set up and then fighting this one. Get this one set up, put it on the weave.
This point also, before you get the next panel put on, is when you want to reach under and try to pull the slack out of the wires and zip tie them. It's not such an issue on your first row because you can always get in behind them even if you're laying on the other side of your roof and reaching over the peak. But yeah, if you're the second row down, third row down, you're not going to be able to reach all the way into the middle of the array just to tighten up the wire.
So usually we get them a little bit snug, not 100% snug, especially with that barbed weave, it has trouble sliding. But we get them relatively tight, and then just simply, Billy will be sitting there and just tie everything up. And then we'll also, especially with the first couple, we'll take measurements off that top rail to make sure we're somewhat close. Yeah. Usually we just mark the first panel, and then, we've tried running a dry line across everything, and now the eye works the best. Actually, Martin, the guy that put up his system, he was explaining, the one that did it yourself last year, he was explaining a system that he had temporarily ironed out that worked real well for him right now. Actually, what we were talking about over the phone. He's temporarily figured it out, but yeah, and then as he's ironing up the top part, I could also just take a look and make sure he's not going crazy.
So you said you alternate the weaves between panels?
Yep.
So the top one doesn't have a weave, and then you'll have a weave up.
So then the next one is the weave up there. And you want to just grab a minute for a second?
Like you only have that much space and no more than that much space.
And that, I don't have to slide it in from the end, but that's the slide in there.
These inverters can be slid around wherever you want them.
But they got to be somewhat close to the middle of each panel. We like them just off center or middle because you have that black box on the back of the panel. These come off of sometimes that's, you know, with the inverter and the wires and everything, it's nice if it's just off center a little bit. Yeah, it's all jumbled in there, but it's still close. And again, you can, these are pretty sturdy. If you do have to do something, you can lay across it to tighten something up or loosen something up. But take your time on that first row. Really get that first row right, and if you want to just keep eyeing up the next row or whatever, give yourself a space, or use a piece of cardboard as a space, so that's up to you. But really the first row is the one that matters the most. We do recommend a little bit of space, so that way if you do get a little funky on a row, you still have a little bit of room to maneuver. Correct. 4 inch, even a half inch, we've been done with as much as an inch also. So it all depends on how it looks from the ground, what your angle of yeah. Yep. Yep. And notice the distance that it keeps off the roof here too. You have a little bit of room that air can get through there and everything. But also that's something to keep in mind too. Say your front of the house is north, your back of the house is south. You want to put them on your southern facing roof, obviously. When you're putting it on the roof, don't just measure from the peak and say, okay, I'm going to go 15 inches down and be okay, because when you raise these panels up, then all of a sudden you can see it from the north side of your house. So if you don't want to see the back side of your, or the tops of your panels, keep that in mind when you're installing. But yeah, the main thing is measuring, and YouTube is every manufacturer has videos on YouTube. I mean, everything has videos on YouTube, but panels, and you could really, really helpful as far as once you get all your equipment in, you can look at everything and go on YouTube videos to get an idea of what it is before you actually get up there and start. So that's very helpful. You're not getting on the roof and getting all set up and then remembering like, crap, I need a flat bar. Let me run to the Home Depot, or I forgot my lag. Durham or something. So, but are there any questions?